Welcome, everyone. And today we discuss Russia wants lasting peace, not a ceasefire. First of all, thank you for being here. Today is March 13th, 2025, and reports coming from Russia state that Russian President Vladimir Putin wants lasting peace, not a ceasefire. So it's interesting when we look at the contrast. Um, Ukrainian President Zelensky did not want a ceasefire, but when he understood that he was not receiving any more financial or military aid from the United States, it began to sink in that his cards are numbered and he has overplayed his hand. One, by listening to Congress and the Democrats encourage him and give him bad advice not to cooperate with Trump and agree to a ceasefire. And basically, before President Zelensky met with Donald Trump, he first met with Democrats and erroneously took their bad advice, which was the only advice and stance that the Democrats in Congress have is non-cooperation with President Trump. So whatever President Trump wants, they want the opposite. If President Trump wanted to go to war, they would call for peace. If President Trump wanted peace, they would call for war. Right now, President Trump is calling for a ceasefire and requesting the Ukrainians and Russians negotiate and sign a peace treaty, and the Democrats have been in the background being negative because they're the ones that primarily funded this Ukrainian war, which is a proxy war designed by Barack Obama to wear down the Russians through money and troops. And that has backfired because the Russian army has gained ground in Ukraine and has lost 10% of what the Ukrainians. It's stated that the Ukrainian army has suffered more than 1 million losses. And we don't know about the population. We would imagine that would be 3 times the amount. So we would imagine Russian civilians who have died in at least 3 million people. We don't have any official records. And meanwhile, the Russian army has lost about 100,000 troops, which is significant when we compare the amount of troops that the United States have lost. And so the European members of NATO, the UK, France, and Germany have called for a continuance of war, but all 3 countries combined have no ability to match the Russian army. And so the only 2 that really are prepared to put boots on the ground are the UK and France, and both have very thin armies. Neither country has the population to withstand 100,000 loss of lives as far as troops, the way that Russia has. And they definitely cannot lose 1 million in troops the way the Ukrainians has. And also the UK government and the French government are extremely weak at this point. Neither party that is in control in office, whether it's France or the UK, has the numbers where they have a comfortable lead to be able to continue if they do decide to take on war. They do not have the numbers in their party to withstand a challenge by another opposition party within France or the UK Parliament. So if this were to occur, Russia would dominate and destroy France and the UK much faster than the German Nazi troops destroyed both countries during World War II. And so the only chance that either country would have if they decided to go to war would have to be to launch missiles, and in particular nuclear heads. They do not. Once again, let's repeat: the French and UK armies do not have the numbers to put boots on the ground in Ukraine against Russia. They do not have the numbers. The only way they could go in is the same way that the only way that Israel can fight the war that it is waged against Iran, Syria, and Lebanon, and that is by the support of American troops. And the American population needs to know that under the Biden administration, Biden has put directly troops in Ukraine and Israel. And we have U.S. troops that are fighting on the border of Israel and Iran, as well as we have U.S. troops that are inside the country of Syria, as well as Lebanon. We also have American troops that may be either under private military groups that represent the United States. So these are private military, paramilitary organizations that have the United States authorization to put troops in a foreign country. And we have members of the U.S. military, that's the Army and the Marines, that have been sent out to fight against Russia, but they are not wearing U.S. military clothing. They have private, whatever these U.S. paramilitary companies, whatever their uniforms are, the U.S. Army has these uniforms on. So under the Biden administration, the Biden administration has sent American Army troops to go fight in Ukraine and simply put on the uniform of a private American paramilitary company. So we do have U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine dying in the Ukrainian-Russian war. And so that is one of the major reasons why the Democrats are going crazy, because the way that they were able to fund this proxy war was through the USAID. And now that Trump and Doge and Elon Musk have uncovered this scheme, an Obama appointed person who's acting as the head of USAID has ordered the remaining USAID employees to destroy all hard drives as well as paper documents that show a auditing trail of how this money has been disseminated since Barack Obama. And what it clearly is showing is that Barack Obama and Joe Biden have declared war on not only in Ukraine against Russia, but also against Iran and other countries, and has done this by funding USAID. Now, what we're finding out is that by sending all of this $350 billion in funding and military weaponry to the Ukraine, that Javelin missiles, which are capable of taking down airplanes, are winding up in Mexico, and you can see Mexican drug cartel. So that means that thus far, and this is coming from Colonel McGregor, Douglas. This source is directly from Colonel Douglas McGregor, and I'm going to play that for you guys. And this is on behalf of Stephen Gardner. This is courtesy of Stephen Gardner.
Combatants are Great Britain and France. Both of them have very small forces. You have to reckon in Ukraine that maybe as much as half of it will disappear into the shadows. And then they end up in places like Mexico. Mexico's not the only one. They end up in places in Central Africa.
Let's rewind this.
Understand that there is an international market for arms. And Ukraine has been a blessing to the international arms market because organizations, terrorist organizations, criminal organizations that want to gain access to military quality weaponry are in that market. Now, some of these things end up being sold down in Kosovo, Bosnia-Herzegovina. Other things end up in different places. But the point is that once you deliver, let us say 50 AK-47s or 50 machine guns of some kind or assault rifles, you have to reckon in Ukraine that maybe as much as half of it will disappear.
Don't buy your electricity. Generate your own for free. You don't have to keep paying bags full of cash for your power. As a matter
into the shadows. And then they end up in places like Mexico. Mexico's not the only one. They end up in places in Central Africa, wherever there's conflict, wherever there's a need for it. And we have people on film down in Mexico walking around with Javelin missiles on their backs. So we know the stuff has reached the cartels, and the cartels are flush with cash. So it's a great business for criminals.
Okay.
So with that, we see that the Mexican drug cartels have Javelin missiles that are capable of taking down airplanes as well as destroying tanks. And that means that as President Trump sends American troops into Mexico to go after the drug cartels are going to be able to retaliate using our U.S. weapons against our military and the CIA. So let's watch and see how this plays out. This is very disturbing, but we already know that illegal guns end up in Congo and in Nigeria, and Nigeria has a lot of oil to pay for guns, so they can buy guns from the Russians, the Chinese, and the Koreans. And the drug cartels are flush with cash, so they can also buy these U.S.-grade military weapons, whether they're now machine guns, okay. But we already know that Russia and China are supplying the U.S. military, or have in the past supplied the U.S. military with AK-47s. And so now these AK-47s are going to Ukraine, and then they're ending up in Nigeria, Kosovo, Congo, and now Mexico. So let's watch how this plays out. The FBI, and we also understand that through the Border Patrol, that the FBI has already been cooperating and escorting Mexican drug cartels across the U.S. border. Yes, you heard it right. Border Patrol and U.S. sheriffs in the state of Arizona, as well as Texas, have already reported that they have come into contact with Mexican drug cartels, and those drug cartels were being escorted from Mexico into the United States by the FBI. Yes, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has been working in cahoots with Mexican drug cartels to ensure a safe escort across the Mexican-U.S. border into America to distribute their drugs. So the corruption in the FBI is very deep, and it's hilarious to watch how all of a sudden the CIA is bringing out tanks that they've had for a long time, and their primary duty is to go after foreign agents and foreign terrorists and anyone who's against us. And now they're pulling out all their tanks that they've had for a long time to now go into Mexico. And they're going to be surprised when they find out that many of the times when people returning fire are going to be the FBI, and the FBI is going to be escorting these Mexican drug cartels. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how many FBI agents end up dead as a result of the American military going in along with the CIA to depose these Mexican drug cartels. And when they finally after the smoke is cleared and they begin identifying the bodies, they're going to find out that a lot of those dead bodies are going to be FBI agents. It is sad about the level of corruption, but I was going to say almost no, it is laughable. Like the level of corruption is hilarious now. So get some popcorn. This is going to be entertaining. I'm turning this into entertainment. This is going to be like Batman fighting Superman. This is going to be like Civil War with Captain America against Iron Man. This is absolutely crazy. So we'll bring more information to you as we laugh away this this disgusting depth of corruption by the FBI and by members of Congress funding this proxy war with Russia against Ukraine. So we'll be back tomorrow with more information. Thank you for being here. I love you all. God bless you. Thank you for watching.